Hi guys, it's 315 here, and today I'm joined by ALAKA'I, and I hope I said it correctly. I know in my my reactions I did. Is that right?
No, it's almost there. It's almost there. So how you pronounce it, like to the like T, if you right, like your English or grammar major or something, it's Alaka'i. So the
ALAKA'I.
apostrophe is what gives it that E, the E right there. Cause I'm Hawaiian. A lot of my family comes from straight from off the island. So my mother named all of her kids, and same thing with all my other cousins and siblings, all Hawaiian names. So Alakai in Hawaii means swamp, but Alaka'i in Hawaii means leader.
Right. ALAKA'I. ALAKA'I.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's so crazy. Yeah, because my mom kept putting that on to me growing up. She was like, you gotta make sure your friends are pronouncing your name right, because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, your name is your character. At least I believe that. I believe when people have certain names, it really shows and reflects who they are as a person. And she's like,
Mm.
I named you as a leader because you're a natural born leader. And if you go by Alakai, you're gonna start inheriting what that means. I'm like, what does it mean? She's like, it means swamp. I'm like, two different slight pronunciations make a drastic definition with it. So I
I
was like,
bet
okay, I gotta make sure now.
you spend your life correcting people. I bet you do.
Man, man, now I was laughing at my manager. I was like, this is gonna be a whole thing, now blowing up and gradually going onto a world stage as people pronunciating the word, you know what I'm saying?
It's
So
like David
that's cool.
David Bowie, isn't it? It'll just be that'll be it rest of your life now, just people not saying it
Right.
correctly.
Hey, for real, bro.
But
Like
it's a
for
good
real.
story and it's a nice icebreaker as well, like to start this interview off, which is nice. So you've already kind of given me a bit of background about yourself. Would you be able to delve into your background a bit more, give me a bit more about you as an artist, as a person?
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. I've been making music, and I'll just start off with really the music. I've been making music my entire life, ever since I was probably my son's age, which he's 4 years old. I've always kind of been dabbling just in music. My big influence at the time when I was his age was Michael Jackson, which I bet everybody was at 4 or 5 years old. Was Michael Jackson, 80s Michael Jackson. I'm talking about Thriller Michael, and they had a DVD collection, and honestly, I would watch all of his videos on repeat, just know every lyric, know how to sing all those high pitch notes, and do the whole dance move, rock around with one glove, right? Sparkles all on it. And then that kind of transition at the same time, my parents started seeing like, the potential in it, where, they turned karaoke night on, they got their friends over, right? Everybody got some wine glasses. And they was like, oh yeah, watch my son. And I would just start doing karaoke in front of all the adults. And I think my parents got some type of feedback from that, where they were like, okay, he's a natural born leader, natural born star. So at that time, I was probably like 5 years old. They started getting me involved in like big magazine shoots and stuff. So I was modeling at first. From 5 to about 8 or 9 years old, I was modeling,
Wow,
and
so
I was
you've already had the
on Jason.
confidence really there, haven't you? You were kind of
Yeah,
forced
yeah,
into that lane with the confidence. I like it.
yeah. I was forced into the spotlight, but like my parents, insisted it just came naturally, and I do believe that, because I think on my first audition, they put me in front of this big white backdrop, and I'm 5 years old. Put me in front of this big white backdrop on, and then they threw on Michael Jackson, and then said, "Okay, just express yourself, dance how you want." And I just started going out there and just like going at it how I would if I was in the enclosure of my home with nobody watching. And again, I just naturally had that inclination to just to show out, and that's how I got my first gig. And then from there, again, I went on to do Levi's. I did modeling for J.C. Penney's, modeling for Macy's, a lot of big brands and stuff like that. And I did that till I was about 7 years old, and I kind of fell out of it, because I started being more of a kid, going out, come back before the street lights on type of kid. Started to socialize more outside of class. And I was about 9 years old. My older brother, who's my manager now, his name is Poke Chop. Um, he was making music with a lot of his friends. He was in the seventh grade at the time, and uh, I don't know if you know, but there was a big movement in the Bay Area in the early 2000s called the hyphy movement. And I would say it was kind of like a renaissance of music in the Bay Area, where so much music was popping up, so much creativity, so much thought so much new things nobody's ever seen or thought about before was kind of interweaving the culture with the music scene. And we just really call it, it's like the hyphy era. And my brother was really, a leading influence in that because, he was a little more older, so he understood it. But the younger generation, we're only 4 years apart. I got it because all of our older brothers and sisters were a part of him doing it. So he
I
got
kind of know
into the
that.
hyphy movement. He started making.
I kind of know that movement was going on around the same time as there was a big sort of punk movement from California as well around the same time. This is early 2000s, isn't it? So
Early 2000s. Yeah,
you got quite a
this
lot
one,
going
Mac
on in the
Dre.
music scene.
Yeah, the Bay Area was already popping, and then having the hyphy movement kind of interweaved in it at the same time. It was this huge explosion happening, and at the same time, it was exciting. It was kind of detrimental to the Bay Area scene also because it was hyphy. Hyphy basically means to get active, to kind of like show out, express yourself, and sometimes if you're in the hood or you're in the wrong place, wrong time, you have a couple shots, you turn it up, you're gonna be active in a very aggressive way, and some people who are coming out to the Bay, they didn't really understand it, and it kind of rubbed up on them wrong, But
So
the
some
Bay Area
people are
sees
kind
it
of
as a
taking the
very
message the wrong
pivotal
way.
moment. Yeah. Unless you were from certain parts of the U.S. where you came from that type of background and that city and that upbringing, you couldn't identify with it, And but that being said, my brother was a part of that. He was a huge thing in that, and I was very influenced by it. Only being 4 years apart, I understood it. I knew what was happening. I wanted to be a part of it, and so at 9 years old, I started rapping. We did it on some old crappy equipment. You know how everybody usually should start. Some old basic equipment. And we didn't even know how to do levels right. You didn't know how to mix, nothing. Honestly, we just thought, you throw a beat on there, you rap over it, and then you just ship it out. and that's how we were doing it. And again, just being a kid, I didn't really take it too serious. I knew I could rap. All the older guys knew I could rap, but I wasn't passionate about it too yet. So I kind of fell out of it. My brother continuing it. He made a really big name for himself in the area, and but about his peak in his career, I kind of came back in, and I was 14 years old, going on 15. And at that time, I was just in the streets. I was doing a lot of uh, incorrect things that could have cost me my life, or could have got me in trouble. I could have been in jail, right? Because I wanted to be like, again, the older crowd. I always hung out with older people. Some of my brothers always hung out with the older crowd, and drawing to them, knowing what the activities they was doing, it kind of made me go right. And so at that time, I was living over in Antioch. That's where I'm originally from. I'm from Antioch, California, and Antioch is like nowadays it's like a South Central Los Angeles. So like how you see it in those movies in LA, where it's really like cliques and gangs and a lot of issues in the police department and stuff. That's what Antioch has become. But at the time, we were at the pinnacle of it, and so we were moving back and forth. My mom was trying to keep us in a good area, good neighborhood, and keep our heads on straight. But me and my brother couldn't do that, me especially. And I got kicked out my mom's house, and I moved in with my dad over in East Oakland. And when I moved over to East Oakland, I would stay inside a lot because I didn't know nobody in the area, and that's where I really started turning into music. I wanted to find something to keep me out of trouble, keep me out the streets, keep me from bad influence, but also honestly find a way to express myself as a young man coming up in the world and understanding what the world really is. And so at 14 years old, again going on 15, I started rapping. I took on the stage name Galaxy Stoner, and I stood by that name honestly until yeah, I stood by that name until last year, probably even earlier this year, honestly.
Yeah.
And I took on Galaxy Stoner because Stoner was technically the lifestyle I was living. It was a very famous tree from the garden I was partaking in.
So is that
and
still on streaming platforms then under that name? It's like
might it might be somewhere the internet. You can always find something on the internet. You gotta go all the way back.
yeah.
And yeah, it might be there because again, I was making a lot of content. So at 15, I made the name. I kind of clicked up with what my brother was doing. Again, he was at his peak of his career. He was a pretty big artist in the Bay Area, And honestly, it just that took me on the whole music ride right there, bro. From 15, I was in school still. I was kind of flunking in school, but I was still in school. I was committed to graduating at least. From 15 to about 19 years old, I was just on the road. I was touring.
Nice.
I was very fortunate. I was very fortunate to just be at the right time and right place and shake hands with a lot of people and network, which I very push onto upcoming artists to do,
Mm.
and that just put me in the right position to be in front of the right crowds. I'm 15, 16 years old, going to school Monday through Friday, and on the weekend, I'll be at I can't say all that, but I'll be at a club. I'll be at a club event. You know what I'm saying? Throwing up an ID with Bob Smith's name on it. You know, that's not ALAKA'I, that's Bob Smith, but he looked like I'll be in the club. And also another thing I'd be doing is again, I'll be at school one day and the next day I'm down in San Diego rocking out a huge sold out venue, you know? And it was in those moments of being on the road and going to different cities. It really opened up my mind to how big the world really is, you know, and how big music can be, your influence and your impact can be. So in this time period, I really describe it that I was very much like Tupac when he was with Digital Underground, where I was making music and I was dropping music, but I wasn't doing enough damage with my actual music to have its own standby career. I
Right.
was really more of a hype man. I was really more of learning the ropes. I would rap again. We go rock a show, go backstage, I freestyle or something, and people like, bro, you gotta drop more music. And I'm like, yeah, I'll drop more music. And then we get back on the road, and I kind of would slack off on that. But even though I was slacking off on the actual creation of music, I was learning so much game and experiencing life. And I can say that that led up to this moment. Now I'm not now, and at 21 years old, I stopped touring as much. I stopped doing shows as much because I wanted to really focus on how could I capitalize on what on this talent people are telling me I have.
Mm.
And so at 21 years old, I took up the actual Galaxy Stoner name and I tried to capitalize on it. And I think from 2019 to 2020, I say probably the middle of this year, I dropped over. I say I probably dropped over 150 songs.
Wow.
150 songs. I'll say compiled over probably 6 or 7 albums, and I was just pushing them out, and that's when I started to make a name for myself as an individual outside of the group, outside of being a his local fame and stuff like that, and I really started to push myself out there onto the stage, and it opened up opportunities, opened up doors. In that time period, I was making good enough music where it was kind of doing cool streams, but again, people now started to recognize the talent. They're like, "Who's this guy?" Started to make relationships in the deeper industry, higher ups. Started ghostwriting for a couple artists. I can't name them, but I started ghostwriting for a lot of local and big artists, and it brought me into the doors. And now I really started to understand how the business side of music worked. I'm like,
Nice.
okay, I understood being on the road, touring, selling tickets. Let me understand now the logistics, how numbers work, how record deals work. The most important part of your music career, the business segment, right? And from 2019 to probably earlier this year, that's what I was doing. I was releasing music, writing music, shaking hands with people. Even if it didn't lead to an opportunity right then, I would just be grateful to just step into bigger rooms so I could show my face, exchange my name, and
Yeah.
just let people know. Again, I'm a full operating machine. I'm not just just don't put me in this tiny box of this rapper. I'm a full around machine. And
Nice.
July this year, I ran into a weird situation with the guy who helped me get a very big distribution deal with a huge record label out here, and he kind of screwed me over. He kind of screwed me over. I say, and again, this is I'm very grateful because this is just now business. It's business. At the end of the day, music industry is business, and when the ball's in your court, the tables are in your favor. That's the best part. But it wasn't, and now I understood why it wasn't and how to prevent it. And I was just in a weird situation where I was releasing all this music. I was doing numbers. I had a check waiting for me, and the guy who I just say the subsidiary I was pushing my music through to get to the distribution center. the big record label. He wasn't showing face. He wasn't answering my calls. So now at this point, I'm creating music, and I'm not getting paid for it. So what eventually turned out was I ended up stripping all the music off. I ended up stripping all those 150 songs I released. I stripped them all off because at the end of the day, the check's still there. So if I gotta take legal action, I can go get it. But I'm not gonna keep allowing this music to create a income for this guy, and he's not showing no face. You basically, I'm in this weird predicament now. So, um, in that process, I kind of wanted to just switch everything up. So I took down the name Galaxy Stoner. I took down everything that belonged to Galaxy Stoner, and I say figuratively, I killed Galaxy Stoner. And in reality too, I wasn't that person anymore. I had kids in the time period. I got married in the time period. I, I ran successful online businesses and made over 8 figures in that time period. So I felt like I was at a more mature stage in my life, and also I felt I was more me, ALAKA'I, than I was Galaxy Stoner. I felt like Galaxy Stoner was kind of like this origin of what it used to be, but it wasn't what it was currently.
Right.
So I took on the name ALAKA'I. I started to, hang around people who were, I say, vocal coaches and stuff like that, who work with big names like Justin Bieber or Beyonce, and they would just coach me on a lot of things and teach me a lot of things, and that eventually turned into me getting a home studio setup, which I recommend to do for a lot of artists. And I recorded that project that you heard, and I did
Nice.
that in the span of I did that in the span of 2 months.
That's
Mixed and
quick.
mastered all that.
So that
Yep,
that
and
kind
with
of
with
leads
the
me
help.
on to my next question, which is what is your creative process like then? Because this is a project you've made entirely by yourself. Well, maybe with help from others as well, but from a home setting. So how do you start something, and then how do you come out with an end product?
Uh, I say, for me, writing has always been um, easy for me to do. I could go in, I could write you a full bloom song in about 10 minutes, right? I don't know. That's God blessed me instinctively with just that writing capability. But what the next step was, where I really wanted to amp up the creative process, was I wanted to be able to go into the studio and to just make a hit record within 10 minutes, but not just have the lyrics there, but have the overall, again, song composition. Wanted to have the mix down. I wanted, when somebody heard me create a song, they thought it took a couple of weeks to put together, but it really took it just a day. And my creative process really is hot tea, use some hot tea, some hot green tea, take a take a couple deep breaths, clean up the setting, the room, make it match the energy,
Yeah.
and I literally just put on beats. And when that one beat clicks, I write it again, probably 10, 15 minutes. I write, the way I write is I literally leave my mic on. So the feedback I'm hearing is literally how it's gonna sound when I record it. And
Nice.
I let that beat play. I let the vocals on live. I rehearse, I record. I got a bunch of I say I got a bunch of sauce. I just throw the sauce right onto the mix, and it's just done. I can hop onto the next one, and that's really
Nice.
just my creative process.
So I also wanted to ask about then hearing I had to listen to your older album, The Party After, which is 22 songs, and as you say, you can just pump out songs. So 22 songs is probably not much for you, whereas I can kind of struggle getting 8 songs together for for a project sometimes. But listening to
Yeah.
The Party After, I'm only about maybe a third of the way through. Comparing it to Hours of the Night, there's a kind of a stark difference between the two projects, where Hours of the
Hmm.
Night is definitely more melodic compared to The Party After, which is more maybe rap focused at times. Um,
Yeah.
and then also listening to Hours of the Night compared to your last project, Hours of the Night seems to be a bit more open and honest and maybe bare and raw in terms of its like lyrical content. So what was the inspiration and background for that album?
So the party after is a compilation of a lot of the songs I dropped under my previous stage name, mixed in with
Right.
some other songs I recorded this year. And it was kind of
So that's
before
why
I
there's so
started
many
changing up my
there.
sound. Yeah, yeah, so many
Ah,
there. I do have hundreds of songs in the vault, but those are the ones that were the most streamed, the most popular, the ones that got the most traction, the ones people wanted to come back to. Um, but the Hours of the Night is a whole different sound, whole different approach. Again, that I came to a conclusion and came up with, and I recorded in a span of 2 months, and that was just a whole different direction. Again, I think being older, I know how to articulate my emotions better through my lyrics and through my music,
mm,
and I knew how to take experiences that I felt and that I've been through in real life, and again put it on paper in a way that people could digest it a little easier. I know how you're kind of going through it. You're like somebody hurt you, and I can say,
yeah,
yeah, a lot of the music, a lot of the music I think I wrote for this project because this I usually like when I'm writing for a project, I literally just make like a board. Like I throw the name, I come up with a name, I brainstorm on it, I throw it up there, and I really try to shoot the cover first. I shoot the cover first, right? And I put the cover on the board. Now I have a name, right? In a cover, so it's a theme. And I try to just paint the music to the theme.
okay. So I'm feeling this is concept. Then it feels very much like a concept album, um,
Yeah.
and I like the idea of getting the album art first. It's always an afterthought for me, but actually getting it first makes sense because then you can kind of get the feel for what you're going for from that cover, from that title. Is there any inspiration on true events, or is it all like fabricated?
I for me, it's like I think I learned that when I was 14 years old. I can't write things that I never lived or been through. Even if I dabble in it, I still won't write about it. I have to live it, and that's what makes the emotions more pure. And I think a lot of the recordings in this album came from relationships and experiences. Even though I'm only 25 years old, but I lived life pretty fast so far from the age of 14 to now. And again, relationships and being in weird situations up until now that I was able to like, okay, I think it's time to kind of talk about it, you know, let the music be the therapist and I'll just kind of talk about it. And I feel like I didn't really reach the surface because my whole goal when I was coming up with the concept was to commercialize it in a way. I wanted to make something where it was it was deep enough where you could feel something, but it was still on the surface where you could just ride to it.
Yeah, you got to walk
Because
that tightrope, haven't
uh,
you?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I did because I had my goal for Hours of the Night was about 20 songs, and I ended up going down to 10 songs, and it was just because again I was on the thin line of introducing this sound. I wanted the music just to be I wanted to be a project you can listen to front to back to front,
Okay, so
and
we're getting
and
a
and you can
deluxe
say it's
edition then.
yeah, hey, yeah, no, definitely, definitely. I say about a month from now, because yeah, about a month from now, I'm definitely talking with the team about that. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I just wanted to do something small and simple, let that kind of make noise, and just as you kind of just suggested, which we already had on the board, is then drop something with just a little bit of extra kick in it, so that people can get an idea what to expect for future releases.
Brilliant, super. Okay, just quickly, I've just realised on this call only allows us 10 more minutes of free on Zoom, so we'll get sort of to wrapping it up soon. I was just wondering who would be interested in this album. So if you had to sell it to me or anyone now, who'd be interested in it? Who is it for?
I think this album in general, maybe how you suggested on the reaction, is for people who kind of are experiencing certain relationship issues, certain emotional issues, growing and developing in their life, and not being able to bring certain people with them, or
Right.
basically going out and developing and growing and maturing and socializing and then coming back home and having somebody in your house not be at the same level. They're kind of more stagnant while you're growing, right?
Yeah.
But I say my music in general is targeted for people who just want to feel something. They just don't want no just shoot 'em up music, take some drugs music, go out and hurt somebody music.
Right. Yeah.
I think my music is really a reflection of myself, and so
I
I can
think
say there's a sense
that's what I
of
connected with as well.
genuine.
It was connecting with it's not your I said it during the reaction, it's not your go-to topics in the genre. It's not your generic cliches. It's actually an artist opening up and being genuine, and more people connect with that than other things. Definitely.
Those are the things you go back to and you click. We all have that. A couple artists or a couple songs you can listen to 10 to 15 years later, and it still hits the same way as you heard it the first time, rather it's a happy song or a sad song. And
Yeah.
it's just, I think it's all about how artists is vulnerable, but also how they express themselves, because it all bleeds into the music. It all bleeds into the music.
Excellent.
And
Yeah.
I think when it presses out a certain way, people are just able to identify it, and identify it and identify with it.
Mm. People can relate to something that's real, and they can tell when something isn't. And I felt real when I reacted to that. I definitely felt real, raw, like emotions and feelings coming through. If you had to choose one song from the album, and I know it's hard to choose from like your babies because they're all your babies, what would be your favorite song on Hours of the Night and why?
I say I say I say can I do two? Or it's gotta be one.
I'll let you do two. I'll let you do two.
Okay, two. I'll say Hours of the Night and Ride Along. And
Okay.
I say that is because um those are the most played songs. Those are the ones that are blowing up and getting into hands of the people higher up and of all levels. And those two songs are special to me because they're the first two songs I recorded with my home studio, and I recorded them so quickly, and they came out so perfect.
Yeah, I
And
have to say,
and
Ride Along is the one for me. Like that's a favorite. Um, but I mean, it's great that it's always the way, isn't it? The ones that you spend less time on end up being the really great ones sometimes, don't they? Um, and then I also just wanted to ask I've got two more questions. One is, how do you feel the internet has impacted your approach to being an artist? Because I know myself, I would have never even dreamed of reacting to music until maybe this year. It's impacted how I approach, dealing with music and listening to musicians. So how has it impacted your approach to being an artist?
I feel it went from a time period which luckily I'm old enough to say I experienced. Again, learning, just being on the road, being at touring and just doing shows. It went from, okay, make sure you have flyers printed out, get them stickers, make sure you got something to physically hand to people. And I think there's still an audience for that. Even the CDs, don't forget to press the CDs. Um, there's still an audience for that. I think it's very vital to have at your merch booth when you're doing touring and shows, right? But it's not necessary to have to take you to the place you want to go as an artist. And the internet has, I think, changed even how record labels approach um, putting out music, right?
Yeah.
Because now it's kind of like you need social media and you need the internet to become somebody versus you just needed uh, local word of mouth, being on the radio station, which is still great things. But that was more of the priority. The internet was still in its baby phases in terms of online marketing and again building a name for yourself to the web. I think the first artist we can all say that we knew from the web was Soldier Boy, right?
Yeah. Yes.
It's
Yes.
it's
Yes.
it's and Soldier Boy laid out a formula really for the rest of the world. And then when Spotify and Apple Music came out,
Yeah.
it just changed how we listen to
And
music,
now it's
how we
TikTok,
buy
isn't it?
music.
It's just become a meme, become a trend. You've got a hit.
Yes,
You're
yes.
famous.
Again,
It's kind of the way
we're
now.
us being older now is crazy because yeah, that is the new thing that the young generation's picking on, and they'll find their favorite artist now from a social media
Oh
platform,
yeah.
specifically
You
TikTok,
saw it this year
especially
with
TikTok.
Stranger Things, just like running up that hill, and Metallica
Yeah,
just came back, and it's just like, thanks TikTok.
well, yeah, thanks. This has been out for 20, 30 years now,
Yeah.
right?
So
And
I've got one
TikTok
last
brought it live.
question for you, and then we'll wrap it up. You kind of touched on it a little bit. What is next for you?
Um, I record. My goal is I record a song every day. So making music is always at the forefront of everything. But in terms of now what I'm doing from this project, because again I wanted to create a very compact album and a very just capitalize on it, push it. One thing I could say to artists is that don't just spend your first week marketing your album if you're up and coming. Um, you gotta realize you're not Chris Brown, you're not Drake. You know, everybody goes and listen to the first week, right? So after the first week, it feels kind of old, but to you, because you're still building an audience, you haven't reached as many years. Um, Even if your album is 3 months old, it's brand new to somebody who's never heard of you before. And so
I
just
like that.
keep capitalizing on your music, capitalizing on your music, and that's my goal with this one. I'm gonna just, I'll say probably for the next 6 months is just pushing this album to its fullest abilities, because there's a lot of verticals and a lot of lanes we could use again to
Okay,
capitalize on this.
that's
I'm
good.
actually, if I had to throw if I had to throw a sneak peek in there, the ride along is actually going to feature, when I do the video, a very big artist. I can't put the name out there yet, but I'll just give you that
Ooh,
the upfront right there. It has a
very
really big
nice.
artist,
So
really big artist on it. And
if we could take a message to people from this, because I do run an independent artist kind of show, it's to keep promoting after your release, not just before. I like that.
yeah. Somebody who's actually pretty famous mentioned this also is Tyler the Creator. You know, he said he's still to this day. I don't know if it's Igor, that was his last project, but he says I still promote that as if it just came out. And that's somebody who has a platform, has the following, has the concert arenas, right?
Yeah,
And I could tell you, as somebody who's not even near that level, that's very true. And what's worked out so far with the success of this specific project was, again, capitalizing on it, and don't treat it like it's just a 1 week thing. Push it to
excellent.
its fullest limit. I heard people at big record labels even kind of reiterate that. They said perform the same song over and over again, because again, new ears, new faces are coming up across you for the first time, and
Mm.
and uh, and if you have a hit single off the album, boy, you better max that out, max it out,
To the
head it
extreme,
to the top,
definitely. Yeah,
head it to
100%.
the top. Let
Um,
them meme it out, you know.
right, we're gonna have to wrap it up because it says we've got a minute left here. But thank you so much. It's been an absolute delight having you and getting allowing you to share your story, promoting Hours of the Night. It's all linked down below as well, so do check in the description. Make sure to promote, support independent artists. So thank you for coming on, ALAKA'I. And I hope I said it right this time.
Yeah, you got it. There you go.
Oh my word.